Austin College returns from Brown, Spin Lob leaves Austin, and we have plans for the high school season on today's TXWaterpolo Show. Hey, it's the TXWaterpolo Podcast. James Smith here in Austin, Joe Linehan in North Texas. Hi, Joe.
Hey, James. How are you?
What do you want to talk about today? Has anything been going on?
Yeah, we had a little Spin Lob Tournament this past weekend.
I know. We've been talking about it for months now, so it's finally over.
Yeah, I mean, it went well. We had, again, we had 20 men's teams and 10 women's teams, and not a big surprise. NYAC won both men and women.
Right.
It was a great game in the men's final against Olympic Club.
Yeah.
Actually, Olympic Club was winning 7-4 in the second half, and NYAC came back and won 9-7.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's a comeback.
Yeah, and there were a lot of great games, throughout the weekend. On the women's side, like the Dallas women did a great job, and they got second place, and they beat the Olympic Club and the LA Athletic Club.
That's great. Yeah.
And then Hops made it into the top 8 on the men's side, and then of course, like all the Texas teams did well, but there were a lot of teams from kind of outside of the state as well that came and played. So everybody loves coming to Austin, and it was a great tournament. An interesting note, the Dallas men's team had 3 shootouts.
Oh, I did notice that. I saw that, yeah.
3 shootouts. So 3 of their 4 games were shootouts. The one other game they beat Hops, but it was a great tournament. I think everybody loves coming back kind of year after year. So a great job to Tom Andrew and his group down there that kind of put on a great tournament. So, and I look forward to seeing it again next year. Then we got lots of other stuff going on in February. I think you're coming to this upcoming Cowtown Rodeo.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
I am.
Which is up in Keller, being hosted by Cowtown. And then we got the ODP training next weekend, and the ODP men's national championship at the end of the month. The women's are in the middle of March, and then the Thunder Spring Invite at the end of February as well. So lots of coming up to Dallas. So.
I'm having a sort of Joe like travel agenda. So I'm coming up for games our first game for Aquatex is not until 3:00 on Saturday. Driving up there to Keller, then driving home obviously on Sunday. Then my daughter's swimming at SPA championships, the swim championships up at Louisville of all places. That's Wednesday, Thursday. And then we have ODP training at the exact same pool on Sunday morning. So I'll be up on Saturday. So I'm establishing my Dallas cred.
So you're getting some, that's a lot of driving.
Yeah, good times, right?
So,
yeah.
Hey, I've been there, done that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like I don't suffer from that too much. And being in Austin, it's central. So getting to Houston is 2.5 hours, and getting to Louisville is maybe like 3.5 hours, something like that. So from the perspective of a Texan, it's not that big a deal.
And then you got the ODP training. So, I mean, just kind of explain to everybody what's that about. So like you get everybody ready to kind of get ready for the ODP National Championships? Yeah,
so the boys team, which I'm the head coach of, has 3 different age groups. And so each of the 3 age groups will be coached by their zone head coach, or by their age group head coach on Sunday. And it's really just a single practice, about 5 hours of time to get prepared for our national championship trip at the end of February. And so I'm actually drawing up practice plans for myself right now. It's going to include a lot of front court. It's going to include a lot of 6-on-5. It's going to include the new rules, although our guys know them pretty well from Utah. But yeah, it's a chance for us to all get together as a single team, train together. If we need to interact with one another by age group, we do that as well. But I've always found that to be extremely useful before we actually hit the ground in California.
Yeah, and then the California trips in Riverside, right?
Back to Riverside. Yeah, it's
do you not like Riverside, James? Come on.
I don't like Riverside. Actually, my grandfather is from Riverside. My mom never ceases to remind me about that, about how beautiful it was, which it was. It was full of orange groves and all that kind of stuff. But now it's full of other stuff. So
yeah, it's full of strip malls, and it's hard to get to, especially if you fly into LAX or Orange County. So.
I refuse. I absolutely refuse. My agenda is to Ontario, and which is the correct way to go. It's really 20 minutes, I think.
Sure.
And before, if there's any Riverside people listening to me, Riverside has areas that are very lovely still. But there is a comical element of sort of that side of California that not a lot of people know about, and I won't go into detail.
And then you just mentioned kind of teaching the kids the new rules. That was an interesting thing about this past weekend at the Spin Lob Classic. We had a whole lot of Masters athletes that had not played with the new rules yet.
Oh yeah, I'll bet they were pleased.
And they are fairly opinionated and they think they're right anyway.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that people just did not quite grasp that I would say over the weekend was the little bit quicker penalty shot call inside of 6 meters.
Oh yeah.
And that was the biggest thing. Yeah, like everyone's like, well, their hands are up. They were holding the ball. They were yelling to the referee, like, yes, this is the new rules.
Those aren't the rules anymore.
So, and that was the biggest thing. A lot of people were struggling to put the ball in play, but also we had some new, like we had the referees that were kind of new, so they were kind of letting it go like a little bit. But overall, it was, I mean, like the new rules, I think are a very positive step kind of moving forward. It's the major thing is, outside of 6, if as soon as you get live, the defense has to come get you, so the defense can't just sit back in a drop or a zone or what have you. So it's going to open up center a little bit, and also probably it's going to open up like in the middle of the pool as far as the space to go and provide a lot more motion and movement. So it's a lot of fun. So unfortunately, we are going back to the old rules for high school season.
Oh, I know.
But the hope is, and this is the word on the street, that the high school group and then quickly followed by the NCAA are going to adopt the new FINA rules. And if that's the case, and if that happens here in the next year or so, that'll be the first time in a very long time that we have one set of water polo rules in this country, which would be great.
They might not be exactly the same, but I understand what you're saying. I mean, this has happened historically. They stopped using 3 fouls in the hole and that kind of stuff, and so I can't remember who led whom in that occasion, whether it was the Americans who led FINA or the other way around. But it takes a while to synchronize these rules, although the interim period can be a huge pain in the butt.
Yeah, but that's okay. I mean, it's great. Just the refs have to be reminded, the players have to be reminded, hey, you're not playing those rules. So, and it's just, and the smarter team, the smarter people are gonna figure it out. So
yeah. I've done some refereeing on both sides, and actually, what's funny is I refereed some Masters on Saturday at not this last one, but a couple Saturdays ago, and I said, look, I'm gonna be refereeing as best as I can these new rules, and that was the exact same complaint as like that penalty shot thing inside the box, which makes refereeing a lot easier, but for those who are accustomed to being able to hack without drawing or maybe just drawing an exclusion instead of a penalty, they were a little bit miffed.
Yeah, well, that's just the Masters players are going to be miffed no matter what.
Yep, no kidding.
There you go.
You know who learned it quickly? You saw it in Utah. Those kids learned quickly. Like they figured it out.
Well, I think the referees were instructed to call at the extreme a little bit.
Yeah.
So
I think that's right.
So they would. Now, I would have to admit this past weekend, there was the occasional upset player, but I've been to Masters tournaments all over the place. This past weekend, the referees did a great job as far as making sure that everybody was under control. There wasn't any heated exchanges. And it was a great environment. It was a laid back environment, and the athletes had a good time. The refs had a good time. I think it was a great environment, especially if you consider the other quote unquote the new rules, because that could have gone easily the other way.
I think you even mentioned to me off the air about how it's funny because NYAC plays O Club on the men's side in the final, and the ones who are complaining the least about the refereeing are those two teams because they're just accustomed to I don't know, having to alter their style of play.
Or some of them may have already played for the last like the year and a half that the new rules have been used a little bit out there on the international scene. But then I know Austin College played this past weekend. with the old rules. So
let's come back and talk about that, because first we have an interview with Mark Lawrence, and then we have a few other things to wrap up with. But we'll return shortly with Coach Mark Lawrence.
In many podcasts, this time would be filled with ads for electric toothbrushes or recruiting services. Not here. Instead, we're asking you to show your support for TXWaterpolo by donating to it. Go to TXWaterpolo.com/donate and help us continue covering the sport we love in the Lone Star State.
Hey, this is Jesse Smith, recent Pan Am gold medalist. I was just checking out Texas Water Polo from the TX Waterpolo Podcast. Also, you can check out the website. You can follow me at Go Smith Now. Thanks, guys.
Never ever make you cry.
5 games in 3 days, a busy schedule over the weekend, and maybe the most challenging games of the entire season for the Austin College women. And their coach, Mark Lawrence, is on Skype with us. How are you, Mark?
Good, James. Thank you.
Good. So let's go. So you emerged without a win, and that was not entirely unexpected. You're playing 3 Division I schools, and a new one too from Long Island that actually has some talent. But let's go one by one, because you actually put a little scare in Brown in the first game. You fell 14-6, but maybe some of the best water polo you played all weekend was in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a really challenging weekend with the teams that we played. Like you mentioned, we played 4 Division I's and then the number 2 Division III team, which is essentially a Division I program. So we started out really well. Our first game against Brown, first half was a 6-3 halftime score, and we thought we did a really good job. They jumped on us 2-0 pretty quickly, and then our goalie came up with some really great blocks, and we got some momentum, and we were able to get some goals on the board. Just so early in the season, playing against a team that's so deep, they just kind of, in the second half, they just wore us down, pulled away a little bit in the fourth quarter to make it look a little larger than what the score was. But over the weekend, Brown played 6 games, and we scored the second most amount of goals against them all weekend. So there's definitely some things to be happy about there.
Very. And you mentioned your goalkeeper. I actually speak a little Russian, but her last name, wow. It's a Valerie Piachonkina. How do you say it?
Piachonkina.
Piachonkina. Yeah, so she actually had a good weekend. Did
a great weekend.
In that game in particular, I remember some standout saves. The next game was Claremont Mudd Scripps. You mentioned they're the second-ranked Division III school in the country, and a very good team. Like I watched that game, and they were impressive. So what did you take away from that one?
Yeah, well, that was a great game to see what we need to build into as a program. They're a program that's very upperclassmen heavy. They were probably the third best team we played the entire weekend. They played really well with Brown and Bucknell throughout the weekend also. And they were just really talented, really fast, really physical, really experienced. So that game for us was great. We played them on a short rest. We had about an hour.
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
In between games. So that obviously didn't really help us out at all. But they're a team we expect to be at the D3 Final Four Nationals, and a team that we expect to compete with at that point in the season, if we're fortunate enough to make it there. So it was great to see where they are now, and the distance that we have to close versus these top Division III programs.
Yeah. So that is educational. I mean, it's hard. It's unless you play them, it's hard to see exactly where any gaps might exist between your program and another Division III school. Yeah. And since we're in the state of Texas, there's nobody else in the state to play against. So yeah, this is a great opportunity to learn where you stand. That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. So it gives us a good point to see where we are and where we have to be.
So next is a game against Siena. I'm fairly certain that you're a bit disappointed by that outcome, although I like to call that game the Lexi Wong game. She scored 7 goals. She's, in my mind, by far your most talented shooter. But it just looked a little bit like at the end you sort of ran out a little bit of gas.
Yeah, I think we just made a lot of mental errors. That was a game that's really disappointing. An opportunity to beat a Division I program for us, hopefully trying to get that first Division I victory in our program history. And it was a game we expected to win. Even now, after losing a close game, we feel very confident that we are the more talented team. But with all just being freshmen and sophomores, we just made so many errors. An offensive foul here turning into a counterattack, or missing hitting the post on an open shot, or making a bad pass on a 6-on-5. Just a handful of 2-goal swings that really killed us. But we also used that game to go really deep in our bench. So
yes,
I would say in that game, all 14 of our field players played almost equal time. So we also kind of have a balance between errors with really young players playing their first collegiate weekend, and things of that nature. So we feel confident that we are definitely the more talented team. I mean, we scored 13 goals on, I think, 15 shots, whatever it was. So there are things we're really happy about. But we're disappointed that we didn't win the game, but we felt like we lost it versus gotten beat. So with that thought process, there's a lot to watch there and get better from. And they've been training since September, and we were since Sunday. So I think there's a little that goes in there. So maybe they're more upset than we are. I'm not sure. So.
Yeah, that was so. And that is a point to be made, is that you've basically had 3, 4, 5 practices up until this tournament. So this tournament almost served as a training weekend. And it was quite evident. It's something I probably should have mentioned earlier, that you were playing everyone, which is admirable. And so you have some of the younger players who are, I mean, you're putting younger players in against Division I schools. It's got to be, it has to be a little intimidating. It has to be a little bit exciting and all that thing and all that. But they're still young players.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't really see ourselves as in like any different from a Division I program, because like the amount of talent that we have is great. So we don't look at the D1 program and think that they're any different or better. I think most people that know the sport really well know that the top Division III and Division II programs are better than a lot of the lower end programs. So I think it's something we're learning in Texas, but across the country, that's pretty well known. And so for us, for these girls that were really young, throwing them in the game and getting them the experience against anyone is like crucial. A part of our strength for our program is our depth when we get into conference play. Yeah. So we want to make sure that all of our women 1 through 14 are ready to play with some confidence. So.
Again, an important point, because we'll go over very briefly the upcoming schedule. First, a little mention of Bucknell. Now, you scored 8 on Bucknell, lost 13-8, which is impressive because Bucknell's defense is just stifling. Phenomenal.
Yeah, they have arguably one of the best coaches in the country for half-court defense and for goalies. He's on our men's national team staffs, and their half-court defense was phenomenal. And what was great is that, they pulled away a little bit. They attacked and essentially, let's say they found success against our depth in the second quarter. And then we went with a 10-player rotation in the second half. And I want to say the second half we outscored them like 6-2. So we were able to get some momentum and make some really great plays. And some of the best individual moments that we had throughout the weekend actually happened in that second half. And something that we're really excited about. So between them and Brown to score 14 goals combined against 2 programs that are known for defense was something that we're really excited about. So.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway, because it's just as you said. I mean, those are essentially 2 of the strongest teams in the entire field, and obviously Brown has the home advantage as well. And the fact that you were able to score that many on them is a testament to your sort of your fortitude. You just kept coming back for more and more and more. But then the last game against the total mystery team, like who knew who was going to be on this Long Island University team? Well, they were pretty good. And 12-4 result. It was your last game of the day. I'm sure you were mentally heading to the airport at the final buzzer. What was your takeaway about that brand new team?
Well, their team specifically was very talented. They have a handful of foreign players, and they're very physical and very talented. And it was kind of like the Siena game where we felt we were equally talented. This was the one game that we wish we could just replay, just simply because we just didn't play well. Just not trying to mask anything or give a political answer, but like this was the one game where we just liked intensity and focus, and we didn't really play as a team, and kind of got stuck in this mental physical quicksand where we would make an error and we would just press and try too hard on the next play and make another error. And it's just one of these games where it just nothing really seemed to work out or go well, although we felt that we were pretty equally matched. Be a game we'll look back and just be a huge learning opportunity about how to prep for a game beforehand, warm up, all every little component, so.
Yeah. And I mentioned your goalkeeper. I'm just going to call her Valerie. And
that's perfect.
Yeah, I think that's the best. And Lexi, of course, Lexi Wong had a very good weekend as far as I can see. Is there anybody else who you might want to mention who stood out to you, especially some of your newer players or the new players?
Yeah. Well, going back to our depth this year is going to be such a strong key for us. And I was really happy with how our freshman class played. I talked about with some of our sophomores in the office just the other day. It's like for our sophomores last year, their first introduction to collegiate water polo was our conference games.
Right.
And we have some really, really good teams in our conference and some great coaches. The freshmen this year, their introduction to collegiate water polo was Brown and Bucknell. So it was a little bit different. And they did really well. Like I was really happy, really proud. Two of our Dallas freshmen, Kate Askew and Catherine Cox, at times were played well on offense and then struggled on offense. But throughout the entire weekend, they played great defense. And they really pushed the counterattack, and they understood spacing and how to protect the ball and where the ball needed to go. So those were two areas where, those two freshmen looked really great. Our freshman, Maddie Jacks, did a great job on offense and, scored our team's first goal of the entire season against Brown. So there were some definitely moments where our freshmen played really well, and we're really excited about that. And overall, Valerie stood out as having a great weekend. She had 31 blocks on the weekend, which, I think we might be selling her short of a couple blocks on our stat sheets, but she did really well. She bailed us out a lot throughout the weekend and killed momentum for their teams throughout the weekend. And, we look at the programs we played against with Brown, Bucknell, CMS, etc. And I think, if you compare it to the goalies on the other teams, she was probably the second or third strongest goalie out of those 6 programs. Mm-hmm. So she did really well. And we did her no favors at times, and she bailed us out. And other times, the field players did great, and Valerie did her job, and it was something that we're definitely built off of. So
you might not have noticed it, but she actually, I think, elicited some of the most interesting commentary from the guys that were doing play-by-play, because they were just completely expecting, let's say, on a breakaway that said, it was going to be a goal, and then she would stuff them every once in a while. It was really good.
Yeah, I honestly think she probably averaged 1 or 2 fast break blocks throughout the weekend for each game. So.
Yeah, you got to go watch those games, Mark. You got to go watch the.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's good fun. I think a couple Brown players were actually in on that, so they have a future in broadcasting. Certainly more than I do, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You have a break. You're not going anywhere until the 28th, where you're headed to Cal Lutheran, and then you play Monterey Bay, Sonoma, East Bay, and Fresno Pacific. Another challenging weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And we look at that weekend. It's we have to wait and see and do a little scouting. But just at this point of the year, it looks like two of the programs are probably at the same level, similar to like a Brown and Bucknell, and then the other 2 are probably similar to maybe some of the mid-range games we saw last weekend. So it's going to be another great weekend of very tough games. And but that was our goal. Like, we want to play. Our season is all about winning our conference, and everything outside of our conference is about getting better. So right. we really want to challenge ourselves. I'm not really a coach that worries about record, especially for non-conference. So, our goal is to come home, with like a 2-2 record, like it was with Brown, if not better, and but overall just play really great water polo and get better. And these games are so valuable, to that experience level. So, because the one thing our women don't have that, in a traditional situation, freshmen can come in and develop and train under seniors and juniors and lean on them for guidance and experience and learn from their errors in practice or in games. We don't have that. So our oldest player is a sophomore. So
right.
So we have to use trying to play a really high level schedule to get that experience, and to make up for that. So we're really excited about the trip. 4 really hard games, but I don't think our players would be here if we didn't play a really hard non-conference schedule.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be any fun. And here's what follows, as you're saying. It's like the idea is, at least from my understanding, is to get yourself challenged and against some of these very, very good teams. And not to say that the rest of them are not good, but they're in your conference. Monmouth, McAllister, Wittenberg, Carthage. VMI is coming to town, which is going to be great. Caltech, McAllister again. So these are the conference games that actually count when it comes to your goal of getting to Division III championships.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything before a conference starts is just about getting better. Being a mental sponge and getting better mentally, physically, and being ready for conference and being healthy for conference. So that's one of our goals too. And it's kind of interesting. I think some of the best coaches we're going to face this entire year are in our conference. But the stronger teams are probably our non-conference games. So it's going to be a great path to make sure that we're ready for what these teams are going to present us, and something we've talked a lot about this year is that, last year we fell short in our conference championship game, and so we feel like we have something to prove within conference this year. So we want to make sure we have done everything possible to be ready, and hopefully be in a position to go back out west in May.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about that as the next tournament approaches. But until then,
absolutely.
Thank you. Congratulations on the weekend, and thank you very much for your time, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
All right.
Double team. Deflection. Ball's loose. Youstra. Ball game.
Hi, I'm U.S. Olympian Janai Kerr, and when I need to stay up to date with my water polo news in Texas, I listen to the TXWaterpolo Podcast.
Welcome back. Just a few more minutes here on the TXWaterpolo Podcast. Just finished speaking with Coach Mark Lawrence from Austin College. Results were 0-5 over the weekend. It was a tough weekend, I have to say. I was watching it, and it was, as Mark said, they've only had 4 practices, and from my perception, that's sort of how it looked. Like they were not as organized as I'm sure they will be in the next tournament, and then as the season progresses.
Well, I think last year, they didn't even start playing till the end of February.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a jump start. I mean, they may have only had 4 practices, but they have had 5 games, which is game is worth a week of practices.
It is huge. Yeah.
And and I mean, they had 9 players total last year,
and now they have
and everybody
14 really.
I mean, and then everybody this year is a sophomore and younger. So they're still a very young teams that they still have to figure it out. They still have to it's hard to go up there and travel. And I don't think they had a 3-day event last year. So this was a 3-day event this year. So they went and played on Friday. They played on Saturday, and then they had one more game on Sunday. And I know that was a tough game on Sunday, but that's tough. That second night in a hotel to get up and play, and it's a lot of learning. And it doesn't matter if they win their games right now. It matters kind of how they do at the end of the year. And I think they're building towards their conference season, and I think they're going to be gunning for that CWPA championship, and then hopefully the like the Division III national championship. So.
Yeah. So and next up, as we said, is Monterey Bay, Sonoma, Cal State East Bay, Fresno Pacific. So there's some winnable games in there as well. Although Monterey Bay is a mystery. It's unclear just what they've got going for them. And then at the beginning of March is when the conference play begins, and that is where they have the opportunity to really rack up some points. Monmouth, McAllister, Wittenberg, Carthage, VMI, Caltech.
Yeah, I would assume that they lost a lot less than everybody else as far as seniors and juniors are concerned. And they gained a whole recruiting class, and these kids, I mean, I don't think those other teams are playing a lot right now. So So I think they have a step ahead on the other teams, and I think it's going to be. It might be a little hard to take right now as far as the like kind of not getting to win this past weekend, and it's going to be some tough games kind of coming up, but I think in the long run it's going to pay off, and I think Austin College is definitely headed in the right direction. I mean, hell, they got 3 players, although they went 0-5, they got 3 players named to the the CWPA Division III Rookie of the Week for Sophie Oliver. They got Lexi Wong, the co-player of the week, and their goalie was named the defensive player of the week.
Yep, outstanding defender, and we just call her Valerie at this point because even I, who have a bit of Slavic skills, her last name is difficult. I'll put it that way. But and Lexi stood out to me. She was really good. She's a very dependable shooter, and so she scored 7 against Siena. It was a very good weekend for her. But for a rookie, Sophie was also she was an important part of that of the weekend as well.
Yeah, and I look forward to watching them or to keep playing. And I'm sure Mark is looking forward to getting back in the pool and practicing a little bit. So
no kidding. I think he had 5 a.m. practice this morning or 5:30. So his conversation with me was both of us were a little sleepy. But so let's move on. So high school is coming soon, and very soon actually. It's almost frighteningly soon.
2.5 weeks is when the first tournament is.
Look, all you got to do is think about UIL swim championships or not this weekend, the weekend following. And I know that the other regions of the state, aside from Central Texas or the West region, they get started earlier. But that's it. That's the Monday after the final of swim meet at UT is when things really kick off. And then boom, you are right into competition. There's no Hell Week. There's none of that. It's just you're just right into competition.
Yeah, I think there's some teams that are playing that Tuesday night, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as a weekday game, but the first the first Friday, Saturday tournament is in 2.5 weeks. I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Me too. And we're going to have a pretty robust role in the entire thing. We have some plans, and they're similar to what we were just talking about with the CWPA. We'll do our very best, at least, to provide every week a player of the week or offensive player of the week, a rookie of the week, and a defender of the week for each of the 9 weeks that the season exists. So pretty exciting stuff from us. And
that's going to be kind of 3 awards for boys and 3 awards for girls as well.
Yep.
And we're going to have a segment that's going to be dedicated to the high school to kind of talk about and kind of recap the games that just happened and kind of preview the games that are coming up. Because there's going to be good games every weekend in all 3 regions. I think a lot of teams are going to be going back and forth between regions and playing different people.
Yeah.
And I know the West region has been a little bit sparse as far as their events compared to the other regions the last couple of years. But I even think that there's like 2 or 3 tournaments a weekend there now.
Yep.
And there's going to be lots of water polo to talk about. So we're going to have a specific high school segment each and every week. So.
And what's really important for those who are listening is that you have to get involved. So we are really looking forward to having your feedback about who is it exactly who excelled over a particular week or a particular weekend. And we'll have a form online for you to submit. And then Joe and I will look them all over and we'll decide on who it is that earns those awards per week. Also, coaches, better, open your email from us because we're looking for your input about rankings. That's my favorite part, actually. I love the ranking stuff. So we'll do a weekly poll just like they do with the CWPA, and that's a statewide a poll, which we can cut into the regions, but still we want to have the rankings fully done for the entire state. Because as you mentioned, for me, what is the most interesting and fun part about the game is obviously playing the teams that are local to you is interesting and fun and so on, but it's really the inter-region competition that I think is the most exciting.
Well, it's going to be the local rivalries and then whenever you get like a Foster to go over and play up at St. Mark's or something like that in the middle of the season, it is always going to be kind of a preview for a possible state championship game and such. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So it's going to be what 9-10 week season kind of, and it ends that first weekend of May at the Cypher ISD Natatorium for the state championships. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then we have some other things that we're kind of still working on kind of here and there as far as kind of during the high school season. So
that's right. It's going to be here before you know it. That fall of 2021. I mean, I'm 52, so now these time passes quickly, but that is, I just can't wait. In fact, I had a conversation with the athletic director yesterday with the sort of same message, which is, come on and join us. It's a UIL sport. So I don't think I was terribly successful, but still the message is pretty clear.
Well, you had a meeting with a private school guy, so
I did.
They don't play UIL. So
I know. But the point is that that's theoretically going to drag along the rest of the programs that are not UIL and have some sort of result. I suspect you have something to do with that, Joe. But
no, there's a lot of people. It takes a village.
Yeah, it takes a village. Yeah, that's what you call it, a village. Okay.
So, but what is it? No, but it's going to be exciting. So.
Yeah. All right. Did we miss anything? Because I think we're done.
I think we're done. We're good.
I think we're done. Thank you, Joe. We'll talk to you again in a week.
All right, James. Take care, and thanks everybody for listening.
Absolutely. Thanks to all of you for listening, for telling a friend about the TXWaterpolo podcast. Go to TXWaterpolo.com to listen to the podcast. Find us on social media and leave comments, and also for what we'll be pushing out there as far as forms for you to submit players of the week, and obviously social media as well. But until next week, so long from Austin.
With all my might, tables are turned and the ride is on the way round. Hold on tight, turn my head again, I'm changing lanes, passing through the time I can't afford to lose. Just imagine all the things that we could do if I could spend it on myself and you. Try